Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Nikki. My name is Nicole Nyokabi and today we are in Naiwave Studios. If you're looking for somewhere to shoot your podcast, you're looking for equipment to shoot podcasts, please DM the number on the screen or text Naiwave on any of their social media platforms. And today on the show we have a very interesting person. This is gonna be a nice one. He's a Gen Z HR. But then if you know any company that is hiring and it has a Gen Z HR, please DM me, and I'm serious. So welcome to our show today.
Thank you.
Can you give us a little bit introduction about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Jeshuran Baraka. Most people know me as Jeshu. I go by Jeshuran the Gen Z HR on all my social media platforms. I am an educator. I am a trainer. I am a HR. Yeah, I think basically that is me in a nutshell. Yeah.
Okay, how did you end up being a Gen Z HR?
Funny story. When I left teaching, I got a job in customer
You were a
service.
teacher?
Yes, I am registered by TSC.
Where did you teach, if you're comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, I taught in a school called St. Jude Seregia. It's in Kakamega County.
It's a high school?
Yeah, it's a high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did that for a few months, about 6 months. It wasn't giving, so I decided.
Okay, we have a problem.
Yeah, true. So I decided to come back to Nairobi. Yeah, and then I got a job with Jumia. Worked as a customer service representative for 6 months. And we had this HR, I hope they don't sue me, but we had this HR who was a bit toxic, kidogo. Yeah. So I realized that in the 6 months I was there, most people used to work for 1 month, they resign, 2 months, they resign, because of that very big disconnect between the younger generation and management. Yeah, so that's where my budding interest for HR came in. So I decided to go to school. Did my course in HR, then got a job in HR and became a HR consultant. So that is how I became the Gen Z HR. Yeah.
So currently you're working in a company?
Yes, so currently I'm working for a company known as Sustainia Human Resource Consultancy. Yes, or mostly SHR consultancy. Yeah, so basically what we do, we offer HR onboarding services for our clients. So you find that as a HR consultant, you could be assigned 3, 4, 5 clients. So you handle their HR needs. Usually you create the HR department from scratch and you run the same department for the contractual period that the company has with that client. Yeah.
So you don't specifically work for a specific, apart from the consultancy firm, you don't work for a specific company?
No, not really.
Not really?
Yeah.
So how has it been?
It's been challenging because, I always get wewe ni mdogo, from so many clients. Yeah, and also employees as well. Yeah, so it's really been challenging. It's been a very big learning curve, trying to tell somebody who's 10, 15 years older than you that whatever you're doing is wrong. Sitting in interviews where you're interviewing a whole engineer with maybe 10, 15 years of experience, it is very challenging. Yeah, and your boss still expects you to deliver at the end of the day. So, yeah, it's been a very big learning curve.
Okay, you talked about the disconnect between the older Gen Zs and the younger working company. So how has that been working for you, considering now it's quite the opposite? You're a younger HR with an older working generation.
So for that, not all the employees I deal with are from the older generation, because I also have the younger generation, people in my age group. So I find it very easy if, say, I want to implement a policy, get the young guys on board. So they're usually the majority. So you find that the older people will tend to, get on board at the end of the day. It's been difficult. You try to sit down and reason with somebody, and the first thing they hit you with is unaniambia na unajua mimi ni kama baba yako. It's a bit difficult. Yeah, so but never back down, never give up.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a really interesting policy. I was once, I'm not even gonna say fired, I was once let off somewhere because of my dressing. As a Gen Z, our meaning of official si chenye millennials ama Gen X wanajua.
That's true.
So I used to work somewhere, I'm not gonna say where. My meaning of official is dresses, and I don't have long dresses. My dresses are like knee neck level. So I remember one day I went to the office and they were like, leo utabidu umejifunga leso.
Oh my God.
I just told them, let me just go home.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to spend the whole day in the office with a
leso wrapped around your waist.
It's really weird.
It is.
So how does that, if that kind of scenario, as a Gen Z HR, how do you handle that?
Usually, when it comes to creating policies, especially for my clients, I usually make it more of a discussion with the employees. So I tell them this is what management wants. What do you want? Yeah, so if we say you cannot come to the office with ripped jeans, and they say, no, we want ripped jeans. So then we came to a compromise. We say, okay, if you must have ripped jeans, then it has to be from the knee downwards, not upward. Yeah, so at the end of the day, finding that delicate balance so that at the end of the day, management and employees are on the same page, is very, very important.
So you're saying most of the companies that you work for, you sit down with both the employees and the management to come up with policies?
Yes, because if, say, for example, the dress code policy, you sit with management and they tell you, so we want a dress code policy because we don't want people wearing open shoes in the office, or open shoes in the salon, or open shoes wherever, because I deal with different clients in different industries. And you go to employees and you tell them, so management doesn't want you people wearing open shoes. And they tell you, the work we do, you can't stay with closed shoes the whole day.
True.
Yeah. So now the question I usually ask them, so help me help you. Now what do we do so that at the end of the day we don't look too casual to management and our clientele as well, and also we retain our comfortability at the workplace. So I have a client who's a salon, so that led to us coming to a compromise where we decided everybody will do black Crocs in the salon. Yeah, because the ladies were complaining, we stand a lot, you're doing someone's hair for 5-6 hours, or you're doing this for 3-4 hours, so you can't put on closed shoes all the time. Yeah, but I told them, but again, you can't put sandals in the salon all the time because of WIBA and OSHA as well. Yeah, because they usually say if you're handling chemicals, you always have to have closed shoes.
So do you sit down with them together, or you go to management and then you come to the employees, discuss with the employees, and then you take the feedback back to management?
I start with management, we discuss. I go to the employees, we discuss. Once we reach to a compromise, now we do a town hall meeting with management and employees. So I will be at the middle where now I'm trying to balance both sides to come into a consensus.
That doesn't bring a lot of conflict?
It does.
Where you work?
It does a lot.
How do you handle that?
Remember, there's a time in the salon we were having an issue, still with the dress code and also contract signing. Yeah, so when we did the town hall, so what I was getting is, oh, since we got HR, you're not listening to us, yada, 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 and all that. And guys decided they don't want to sign contracts. And management was like, if you don't want to sign contracts, you can leave. So you're at a very tight spot where you have to look at the interest of the business and also look at the interest of the employees. Yeah, so at the end of the day, whatever you do, you have to show the employees that you need to understand I am doing this for your good. And your good is the good of the company at the end of the day. Yeah.
So when there are conflicts, how do you handle the conflicts that come during the negotiations?
Usually take a breather, so what I usually do is now I tell the employees, now if Nicole is your representative, then tell all your issues to Nicole and then let Nicole come and speak with management. It's easier. It's usually a very draconian kind of way, divide and conquer. It still works even in corporate. Yeah, so once you remove, every employee from that hard mentality and you get that one person who's sane, it will be very easy for them to go convince their fellow employees to, either get on board or agree to the compromise that the company is willing to compromise on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said something about interviewing people who are 10, 15 years older than you.
Yeah.
So you do interviews for your clients?
Yes, not really even for just our clients. There are also people who contract our company just to do recruitment, and that's it.
So how does that work?
So, like, let's say, for example, Nafsi Africa can decide they're looking for an admin or they're looking for a CEO. So they come to SHR and they tell us, so this is what we're looking for in our CEO, this is our job description, this is our budget. So we create the poster, we advertise, we shortlist, we do all rounds of interviews. Usually we have 3 interviews where we do a first screening, which is usually online on Zoom. Then we do a second interview, which is now a physical interview at our offices. And then now the final interview is where we've narrowed down to maybe the best 3 or the best 4. And then we do the final interview with the client.
Okay, so I sound come interviews as CCI.
Not necessarily.
No, because CCI has 3 interviews before you get the job. That's what I've said. They sound like the CCI interviews.
Oh yeah. Usually it depends because for a role like senior management role, you have to have a little bit more interviews than maybe an entry level interview. Because usually with entry level, it's just 2 interviews: one with us, one with the client.
Okay, so if anyone wants to hire your company, where would they get the help from?
Usually you can call us or you can, the easiest way that I find people getting through to us is through our social media handles. Usually on Instagram, SHR Consultancy, or you can DM our boss, Caroline the HR. Yeah, so that's how you can get to, it's the easiest way to get to us. Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to hire,
Yeah.
I've brought to you advertising, management, HR person.
Okay.
How do you manage all those roles? Like advertising, managing, HR.
Yeah. So our company is a team of 5 HRs. So usually we break down the job and everybody tackles a small piece. Yeah, so that way you find that at the end of the day we deliver in time without one person feeling overwhelmed. Yeah.
Okay. So what are the challenges that you've faced as a Gen Z HR?
Aside from ageism, there's a lot of ageism where, as a young person, you have to prove yourself constantly.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and most employers usually there's this very negative connotation. Somebody asks you your age and then they're like, wewe ni Gen Z, so they have this connotation, There's a time I went for an interview and this gentleman just told me, wewe ni Gen Z, so tutakupatia contract ya 4 months, and in those 4 months you cannot leave this company at whatever, in whatever circumstance, because they've had very bad experiences of Gen Zs who don't have work ethic.
Okay.
But what they fail to understand is that we also have baby boomers, Gen X, millennials who don't have work ethic. It narrows down to you as an individual. Yeah, so, and then also pushing the boundaries in the HR field. I love ruggeding my hair. But I have a boss who's a millennial and she has a big problem with that. She says, as a HR, you're the image of the company and all that. But I look at her and I'm wondering, the people I work with wouldn't mind. If I went dressed in shorts, if I did all, as long as I get the job done. So there's also that where we are more focused on physical appearance than what somebody can deliver. So that's also another very big challenge. And then also the money. People will just underquote you because you're young. Yeah. You go to an interview, you're asked how much do you want to be paid, you say 90,000. They're like, now Jawa. So
wait, how does marriage with whatever you're making come in to make a point?
Yeah. And for a fact that is the budget they have for that position.
And they won't pay you the 90K?
No, they won't pay you the 90K.
That's really sad. I'm sorry.
It is. Yeah, so and most times you just decide to decline the offer. Because if you shortlisted me for the position, it means I meet the prerequisite requirements. So if I'm asking for 90K, that's what I'm worth. Your budget is 100K. So why do you want to pay me 40 or 30,000? Yeah, there's a lot. It's just toxic salary negotiations that happens in corporate. Yeah, and it really narrows down to your age also. Yeah.
Okay. So people are always like, oh, Gen Zs are toxic, Gen Zs are happy to kufanya kazi, because as a Gen Z, I know if I go to a toxic workplace, I'll leave the place and I'll leave the space. So what do you tell employers when they see you any Gen Z? Like, I'm andika Gen Z because of how toxic they are and how they can't handle being in a toxic environment like the millennials are used to.
So usually, I've never really had an employer who has asked me that, but my clients usually bring it up. Yeah, so I usually tell them, if you're having young people leaving your company, it's not a them problem, it's a you problem. Yeah.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, the management and the culture that the management has is what trickles down to the employees. Yeah, and if your employees are having a very hard time being in the company, high turnover rates should never be blamed on employees. So you need to introspect and look within. Are you not paying people enough? Are you not offering guidance? Are you not offering the necessary support that they need? Yeah, so it's always a management problem. Yeah.
Okay. You said something about, God, I've lost it. I've forgotten what I wanted to ask you. But as a Gen Z HR, which is really weird, if you go to a company where the culture is already toxic, like already the policies were implemented there, the culture is toxic, and the company is trying to rebrand, how do you change the toxic culture in that company to make it be a more positive working environment?
Oh, all right. So with policies, I usually say nothing is cast in stone. Yeah, so, and usually when it comes to changing something, it also takes time. So there's a lot of patience that is involved. You know, we cannot just wake up one day and decide we're not going to be toxic anymore, we're just going to be rainbows and unicorns. So it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of support from management. You know, so if we decide from now on we're going to be paying people what they're worth, not what we think, you know, they're supposed to be getting. Yeah, so that is also going to take time. So if we say we're giving Nicole 10,000, but she deserves to be paid 60,000, you know, if the company does not have the financial muscle, we can tell Nicole, in a span of 8 months, we're going to be increasing your salary, you know, concurrently.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe from 10, we get you to 20, and then 30, and then 40, you know, so it will take a lot of time. And then also having management support the new initiatives that you're bringing in. Maybe I want to introduce a wellness program, you know, where we get a counselor twice a week. People go share their problems, you know, at which is also kept confidential. We revamp our policies in terms of our disciplinary actions, in terms of our reward management policies. You know, it takes a little bit of time. Yeah, but with patience, nothing is impossible. Yeah.
Okay, you've talked about wellness programs.
Yeah.
So your company suggests to other companies to start wellness, your clients to start wellness programs.
I've actually pitched that idea to so many of my clients.
So what kind of wellness programs do you pitch?
Usually I tell them try as much as possible to incorporate leave days. You know, most clients that we join usually don't have any policies whatsoever. So you ask somebody, do you give your employees leave days? And they're like, I know, they just come ask for permission, you know, and then we give them an off day. You know, so if an employee knows at every year I have 21 annual leave days, you know, there's that feeling of I can just take time and go and rest. And then also encouraging more off days. You know, the employment law usually suggests you give somebody one rest day, but I tell my clients at least make that 2 or 3 if you can.
In a
Mostly
week?
2, yes.
So, okay, what's the difference between off days and leave days?
Off days are usually for every 7 days worked, one of them has to be a rest day.
Okay.
Your employer is mandated to give you that one rest day. So that's what we call off days.
Okay.
And then leave days are usually annual paid leave, where again the employment law suggests that, not really suggests, it more or less commands.
You have to be paid for the leave days?
Yes, your leave days are supposed, the minimum that the Employment Act stipulates is 21 days, which are supposed to be fully paid. Yeah.
Okay. Now we go back to the wellness programs.
Okay, yeah, so there's that, and then also depending on the nature of the work or the nature of whatever the service the client is offering, I usually tell them to also introduce things like counseling. You know, given that we have a mental health crisis in the country.
True.
And therapy is really, really expensive.
It is.
Yeah. So if the company has the financial budget or the financial muscle to actually pay for some of these programs, I usually tell them to do that. And then I also encourage my clients, most of them are ladies actually, you know, incorporate some team buildings. You know, every quarter, let guys go out of the office, go for a hike, go for lunch, just go and bond. Yeah, and then also have maybe once a month, you can just do a hangout within the office where we say, this Friday we will work till 10, then from there we go out somewhere for lunch, or we order in and just eat and bond. And, you know, there's something about African people and food.
There is.
Yeah, it just brings people together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is basically it also, because I usually also look at the size of our clients, because our boss had the vision of providing HR services to SMEs. Yeah, so we can now start telling them, take people to Diani, take people to Mombasa. You know, we'd love to, but our income does not allow us to get there. So we try as much as possible to incorporate what we can with the budget that we're working with. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot. I'm actually surprised, but I didn't even know how HR works. I just know every place people work, most places work, there are HR departments there. So what is HR about most of the time? You know, kuna tunajuanga tu kuna HR lakini ajui HR inamaanisha nini. They usually like ukitaka kufutwa kazi, ukiandika complain HR.
Yeah.
So what is HR about?
So usually, I get asked that question a lot. You know, my younger brother Luther once told me, "Si kazi ya HR ni kufuta watu na kupea watu kazi." You know, there's that connotation.
Yeah.
But recruitment is not really fully a HR's domain. Yeah, usually what happens, let me just debunk that. What happens with recruitment is a department will send a requisition to the human resource department. Yeah, so they say, in the media department, we need a new editor. And this is what we're looking at, this is our budget. Now HR will forward this requisition to finance and ask finance, do we have the budget to hire somebody new? And finance will say, okay, we've been given the green light, so we recruit for that. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's usually that department that will run the whole recruitment process. So in terms of HR, will just shortlist given what they've been told, but they will sit in to guide in the interviews.
Okay.
But the final decision is usually made by management. So maybe head of department will say, I want Nicole, I don't want Luther. Okay. Then now HR does the offer letter and the contract and all that. And then also HR does a lot of performance management. You know, so when you're called at the end of the quarter or maybe at the end of the year, it depends with the company culture. Some do performance reviews quarterly, some do after bi-quarterly or biannually, sorry, and some do it annually. So HR will come up with a structure that will guide the heads of department to now break it down. It's usually more of like a questionnaire where you're asked to rate yourself, you know, rate your peers. And then now HR will do a summary of all this, you know, and we'll sit you down with your supervisor to try and understand. So Nicole, these were your KPIs. Why did you not meet your KPIs? What can we do?
KPIs?
So KPIs are basically, usually it's more of key performance indicators.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so it's basically, this is the job that you're doing. So usually when you're employed, you get a job description with, you'll be doing A, B, C, D. So maybe the editor will be told you'll be editing 2 videos a day, you'll be taking 3-4 photos, you know, you'll be doing this, you'll be doing that. Now we come to the editing of 2 videos a day. That is one of your roles or responsibilities. So we break it down. How will we know you've achieved doing 2 videos a day? Yeah, so your KPI now becomes you have 6 hours to deliver 1 video. So that's 1 KPI. And then maybe you have another 3 hours to send that video to maybe somebody else to approve it. So how you meet these targets that have been broken down for you now, that's what we call KPIs. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we also have disciplinary actions. HR also handles that. You know, when somebody decides to mess up in the company, we call you to the office, we ask you very simple questions. Yeah, most people have made it to be, you know, hey, umeitwa na HR, umefanya makosa, but it shouldn't be like that. Yeah, so usually how I do it is I'll call you to the office, Nicole, tell you, so this ABC, you've done ABCD. So now what does our policy say about ABCD? You know, so you tell me, okay, so the policy says you shouldn't come late. So I ask you, so then why did you come late? Oh, you know, our matatu was shikwad. Then I'll ask you, so did you communicate? No. You know? So now you get to see why you're in this predicament. You know, instead of me just telling you, oh, you know, Nicole, you're late. Here's your warning letter. You know, so I try to get to the bottom of the matter because I tend to understand I'm dealing with human beings. Adults nonetheless, but human beings at the end of the day. And when you look at the history of HR, it started as manpower management, where you don't see employees as people, you see them as manpower, as assets to the company.
Yeah,
that's why HR has a very toxic connotation with the older generation. You know, because we used to see this editor is a property of the company, not that this editor is a human being working for this company. Yeah, so there's that, and then I basically, there's a lot that goes. There's also trainings. You know, HR facilitates a lot of trainings. So if you see anywhere a company saying, oh, we're doing training for ABCD, it's usually HR who comes up with these personal development programs to benefit the employees. So at the end of the day, what HR does is try to make sure that this these living assets of the company are treated as human beings. That's why now manpower management was changed to human resource management. Yeah.
Oh, it used to be called manpower.
It used to be called manpower management.
That's so toxic.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of millennials say that Gen Z is the soft, wanapenda maisha soft. So you working filling the gap between millennials, Gen X and Gen Z, do you find clients who judge you for being a Gen Z and not for being the services that you're providing to the company?
Yes, I've had one client who used to complain a lot. So she was like, I tell him to do this, he goes and does his own things. But so you find that this lady would wake up one morning and tell me, I want you to go and fire Nicole.
Why?
That's the exact same question I'll ask. And she'll tell me, so Nicole is not making sales.
Okay.
So now you try and break it down and I ask her, so why is Nicole not making sales? So she'll tell me, we don't have many walk-ins. So now I tell her, so is that a Nicole problem?
No,
or is it an economy problem?
It's an economy and company
so she
problem.
used to feel very conflicted. She's like, I'm not feeling the support of HR. I tell him to do things, he's not doing things. So trying to get her to understand that just because you suffer doesn't mean you need to make somebody else suffer was a very, very big problem I had with that client. Until eventually I got her to now start seeing her employees as people and not just, I'm doing you a favor by giving you a job and paying you at the end of the month. And I also used to tell her the fact that you're not even in Kenya, you really, really need to be very good to your employees.
So she's not in the country.
Yeah, she's not in the country.
There's someone managing the company.
Yeah, just 2 employees. It's a boutique, a very high-end boutique.
But she wants you to fire people.
Yes.
Okay.
So and then also trying to debunk and break down what the Employment Act says about termination was also a very big problem. Because we came in and I told her, first things first, these guys need contracts. You can't just have people in the shop without contracts of employment. So now you're telling me to fire this person. We have not given them notice and we don't have any reasons as to why we want to fire them. So I can choose to fire them, but at the end of the day, you're going to be served a letter from the labor office. And 99.9% of cases that are usually taken to the Employment and Labor Relations Court end up with the employer paying the employee.
So it's very important for someone to have a contract.
It is very, very important. Whatever you do, don't accept a job without a contract of employment.
I don't have one, but I'm going to get one. Nimesikia iko na maana
Yes,
sana.
that's
So what is your advice to people like me who work without having contracts?
Ask for a contract.
What is the importance of contract, like working for organizations most of the time?
Okay, so once you have signed a contract of employment, that becomes a legal obligation that ties you to your employer and your employer to you. And what most employers don't understand is that the labor laws in Kenya favor the employee more than the employer. So now having an employment contract, you find that your employer cannot just wake up and tell you, Nicole, go home. They cannot suspend you without following the proper procedure. So you get
rights in the company.
Yes, they cannot fire you without following proper procedure. Yes, and anything, they cannot just wake up one day and now tell you, so Nicole, now that you are the host of the podcast, so now we want to also make you an editor.
No.
So usually some people feel like, they trust me. But with an employment contract, you can now tell them, so am I getting more benefits? Is my salary being revamped? If not, then you don't have to do it.
Okay, now I have a question. Umesema contracts are very important in a company.
Yes.
So how do you know what you want to be included in the contract that you want for that company? Because companies are different. Policies in each company are different. Regulations in each company are different. How do you know that you can get a contract that favors both you and your employer?
So usually contracts are, I wouldn't really say pretty standard, but there's more of a template that most companies follow. So the contract will have your name, the name of the company, the terms of employment, your salary, your benefits, your working hours, and all that. So some other things that maybe a company can choose to include, they can choose to include your JD in the contract. Some companies decide to put it in annexure where you're given your contract and your JD separately, but there's a clause in the contract that says the JD forms part of that agreement.
What's a JD?
A job description.
Oh.
Yes. You know, when you go to you get a job and now you're being told this is what you'll be doing. That document that you're given, that's your job description. Yes. So that's why you find most Gen Zs usually tell the employer, is that in my JD? You know, you're telling me to go take photos, I'm an editor, is that in my JD? Yeah, but then again, I'm not telling the young people out there to be toxic, because at the end of the day, you also need to look at, if your boss is telling you to do this, it might be out of your Gen Z, but how will that skill benefit you? You know, so sometimes you have to weigh the weights and realize because there's a very thin line between being exploited and being empowered.
So can I say I'm being exploited when maybe when the work started, nilikuwa naambiwa you're supposed to do this every week, and then as the company continues growing, I get more work and still I'm getting the same amount of money I was being paid when I started working at the company. Is that me being exploited, or is that me being empowered?
Have you asked for a salary increase? Have you had that conversation?
It's not me, I'm asking a question. So
no, so let's just assume it is you. So have you had
Probably
that conversation with your boss?
Probably
so
not.
Then you are enabling the exploitation. Because at the end of the day, you also need to understand what you want as an employee. Yes, more roles are usually for your own benefit, but then they shouldn't come as an arm twist for you as an employee.
So how do you know the difference between exploitation and empowerment?
So empowerment is usually, most of the time, you're told to do things that are well within the job that you do on a day-to-day basis, maybe just on a higher magnitude. But exploitation is where you're a photographer and you're told, now the admin is off, now we need you to go and type a few things for them. Or maybe you're the admin and you're told the editor is sick, go and edit a few videos, you know. That is way beyond what you know or your skill level. And somebody expects you to deliver without proper instruction, without maybe more compensation and all that. So that is exploitation in my book.
In your book.
Yeah.
Now I have a question. You work mostly with clients who are employers.
Yes.
Have you ever been hired by an employee or employees who want the company or the environment or the organization they're working for to implement a Gen Z or not a Gen Z, a HR program?
Not really. Yeah, because it's very difficult for employees to hire you.
Why? Is your quotation so high?
Not necessarily, but it's going to be very difficult if I'm running a company and now my employees want to go and hire somebody.
They want you to come and help them implement the HR program because the company probably doesn't have any.
Then, because at the end of the day, we need to sign a contract with the employer. Because now I cannot come to the employer's work premises and now start doing things without the knowledge of the employer. That will be trespassing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said something about recruitment. Do you advertise jobs that are open jobs, open positions? Because right now finding work is really hard. Do you put like adverts when a company or a client requests you to hire someone for them? Do you advertise the jobs for them?
Yes, when a client says, now we want an editor, we do the whole advertising. So on our website, on our Instagram. I've even been made to do so many TikToks, and I don't even like TikTok, you know, just to advertise for jobs for clients. Yeah. And then there's also, yes, jobs are hard to find, but something again I've noticed with this young generation, most of them ghost interviews a lot. You know, you call somebody, you tell them, hi, Nicole, so you applied for this job. I'd like to invite you for an interview. Will you be available? Nicole tells you, yes, I'll be available. And then on the day of the interview, they're not picking your calls. They don't show up.
Gen Z are scared to work. That is one thing I've learned. A lot of people are scared to work. They just want to be in their comfort where they know, end month, anatumia pesa.
Yeah,
and that ends.
Yeah, that's true.
So probably that's why. Please don't. A lot of people are looking for work. I know
Very
of friends
true.
who are usually like, Nicole, if you are somewhere they're hiring, please let me know.
Yeah, that's true.
So where can someone find those job adverts that you post?
Usually on our website. Yeah, so it's usually www.sustainiahrconsultancy.com.
You don't post on your socials?
Rarely, because I'm not very, I'm not very active on social media.
You need a social media manager. No, create job moja. You need to hire a social media manager
yeah, that's true.
to help you manage that. No, I was asking for the company. That's the company post.
Oh yeah, the company
the
does.
job adverts.
Yes, the company does.
On all their socials.
On all our social media platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok,
Please
and then on the website.
Follow them if you're looking for work. Stop DMing me. me.
That's very, very true, especially on TikTok. But now on TikTok, we also have this weird, there's this weird connotation where when you advertise for a job, guys are in the comment section, oh, is this AIM Global? Oh, is this GNLD?
But
you
it's
know?
true. A lot of people have been scammed, because I also have a friend of mine who was scammed. You go to TikTok and someone's like, hey, we are hiring. You call the number, they even call you for the interview, unaenda unapata either ni AIM Global ama ile ingine sijui inaitangwa ajili ya
Super Life. And
Super Life, the pyramid scam.
What was its name? I don't really
Alliance
remember
something.
it.
And it starts with an
See, that's
A.
AIM Global.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, Alliance in
So
Motion
that's why a
Global.
lot of people don't. Hata mimi mwenyewe, if someone sends me something for a job and it's on TikTok, I will not go for that interview. Because I'll think this person is scamming me.
Yeah.
But if I go to Instagram and I see the advert there, then hiyo ndachukulia serious. But I get watu wanawaribia.
Ukweli. Yeah.
So how do you know because I remember there's a conversation having a friend of mine who's like, how do you know like a TikTok post is legit? How do you know they're actually hiring and not is AIM Global?
Okay. So with AIM Global, what they usually do is they'll advertise and then tell you, okay, so come to such and such a place on such and such a date. You know, so it's usually very weird when a potential employer, quote unquote, says that, because when it comes to recruitment, it's a very tricky process. Because one, you need to stick to the budget that the company has allocated you for that particular process. So, you find that if you just want to know it's valid, most employers who are legit will tell you, go and apply on the website or send your CV to this email. Yeah. Another very big scam I usually see is somebody tells you send it to this Gmail. So maybe luthercompany@gmail.com. Personally, I wouldn't apply. And because why is a whole company having the Gmail domain? Why not just get a proper email domain to use? Yeah. So those the small, minute things are usually very important. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're looking for work, please go and check out that website. You said something about the being fired. You said there's a process that an employee is supposed to follow. Can you explain to us what that process looks like?
Okay. So there are two ways that an employer can fire you. One, an employer can fire you summarily. So summary dismissal is where your employer will tell you, Nicole, pack your things and go home.
Hata kama nilikuwa na contract.
Hata kama ulikuwa na contract. That is
but
usually,
then I can sue them if they do that.
No, you can't sue when it comes to summary dismissal, because it's usually in cases of gross misconduct.
Oh, yeah.
So gross misconduct are things like, you came, you found your boss's Samsung was on the table, you bebared, you went with it. Somebody saw you on the CCTV, you came back the next day, you asked, you didn't, you denied. Yeah, but they have concrete evidence of theft. Theft is considered gross misconduct, even in the Employment Act. You came to work, you were drunk, you beat up somebody, this person went to hospital, maybe they were admitted or they had a few broken bones, reported to the police. Your boss will fire you. Yeah, you're convicted of a crime by the Kenyan judiciary. Your boss will fire you summarily with no notice whatsoever.
Okay.
Then there's also where now your employer will give you notice. So this is in cases of maybe redundancy, but usually redundancy is like a last resort. Yeah, so an employer can give you notice and tell you, so Nicole, the company is shutting down because of ABCD, so we're declaring your role redundant. But with redundancy now, the employer has to jump through so many hoops, go to the labor office, report this is what is happening, get a court order before now they can declare people redundant, and then now pay severance pay, which is really very, very, very expensive. Yeah. But also, in a case where now your role is being scrapped off, maybe you're an editor and now the company is switching to a print media company. So we will no longer require a video editor. So your role becomes redundant in the company. So the company can serve you a 1-month notice and tell you, so now we are changing our trade and we no longer require your skills. So consider this your 1-month notice for termination. Yeah, if it's a disciplinary case, where now the employer wants to terminate you on disciplinary grounds, they need to have followed a very, very long process, so you did your first mistake, you're issued with a show cause letter, you respond, maybe you have a disciplinary panel hearing, you get your first warning, you get your second warning, you get now your third warning. So after the third warning letter is where now an employer can terminate your employment. Yeah, and usually with the warning letters, you after 1 year, say from January to maybe November, you've had 2 warning letters. And then now the year ends, maybe our financial year ends in December. When we come to January, your nini, how they called? Your warning letters from the previous year cannot be used against you.
True.
Yes.
So unaweza tu makosa moja ama mbili kwa mwaka.
Not necessarily,
like in a financial
because
year.
not in a financial year. From the day that nini is issued, that warning
warning
letter is issued, it's only valid for 12 months. So say for example you did a makosa in January, so next year January, or maybe next year February, if you had 2 warning letters from last year, so it's already 12 months have already lapsed. Then you do another
they
mistake.
Are invalid.
Yes, we cannot now issue. No, this is your 3rd and final warning. We give
that
you now
will become as first warning.
One warning letter. Yeah.
That's a really nice policy. I like that one.
Yeah, it is. It is in the Employment Act. So I usually also tell employees, familiarize yourself with the Employment Act, because your employer will take advantage of you because you're ignorant. Yeah.
Okay. So you said something about employees suing employers. So what grounds do employees have to sue the employers?
Mostly unfair termination. Yeah, so where now your employer decides to fire you and you feel the way you're fired was not per the law.
So how,
your employer just comes and tells you, so now we are firing you because you're not doing a good job. No notice, no nothing. So you can decide to go and report it to the labor office.
Where is the labor office?
Usually you can the labor office, I don't know, depending on your industry. So there's like a major, like a common labor office. So what most people do is you lodge a complaint in the labor office in maybe your county, because there's usually county labor offices in each county.
Okay.
Yeah, so you find out where it is, you go, maybe you're in Nairobi or Nakuru, you go, you report it, they will investigate it, and if it's something that they can settle out of court, they can. Or if you have the means, you go find a lawyer, and you tell the lawyer this is what is happening. They tell you, okay, that was maybe unfair termination, and they send a demand letter to your employer. And then you go to court, you paid very good money, and you go home.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is usually something I tell my clients. Try as much as possible not to get a case with an employee to the labor relations court, especially if you know you are the one who was on the wrong, because 90% of the time the employee will win. Yeah.
So does your company, or do you only work in Nairobi, or do you work in other counties?
Currently we only work in Nairobi, but our boss is looking to expand in other counties come next year.
That's nice. So other people in other county can start hiring.
Yes, they can.
Thank you very much for coming in today. As we wrap up, I have one question for you.
Right.
To anyone who's probably looking for work and leo ndo amekuja kusikia mambo ya HR and all that, and they don't know what to look for where they're going to work. So what do you advise to them?
What to look for in terms of?
Let's start, for example, I have a friend of mine. She just finished her certificate in counseling psychology. She wants to go into work, so she doesn't have experience apart from ile attachment. So what is she supposed to look for? Like if she gets called in for an interview, what is she supposed to look for in the interview? And then there's this question that people always ask in interviews: what is your salary expectation?
All right. So firstly, I usually tell people, make sure your CV is it's well done.
How do you know your CV is well done?
Because the way you present your CV, you'll just look at a document even if you're not a HR and just be like, hey, no effort, no nothing. And then also when you're applying for a job, ensure you customize your CV to suit that job. Before I was a HR, I used to think, why would I do that? It's a lot of work. I only have one
CV and I use it for everything.
Exactly. So you find that maybe that's why most HRs are not shortlisting you. Because this is maybe a media role. You've worked in a media company, but now your CV is talking about customer service. So, and every HR takes about 30 to 40 seconds to look at a CV. We don't read it word for word, and we don't ask God, God, is this our client or is this our candidate?
So unasema you're supposed to have a CV. If you're applying for a media role, have a CV that talks about media.
Yes.
If you're applying for a hospital role, have a CV that talks about.
Yeah. So use the job description to tailor your CV for that particular job. It is a lot of work, but it goes a long way. Yeah. And then also when you're going for interviews, you can always tell the environment depending on how the panel is, the panel is. Because if I'm being interviewed for an internship role and I get a panel of 7 people, I'll just know that these people are micromanagers. Because I'm an intern, 1 or 2 people should suffice. But now I'm getting 7 people also. This is the HR assistant, the HR manager is there, the head of human resource department is also there. So meaning the HOD does not trust the manager does not trust the assistant. So now you're joining a company where people will be policing you around. And our generation, no one likes to be policed around when doing their job. Yeah. And when it comes to the question of what is your salary expectation, there are 2 ways to answer that. If I want 60K, I'll tell you I want 60K. Yeah. So, because at the end of the day, the company usually has a budget. Let no one ever lie to you. Every company, before hiring or before advertising a job, they always say, we're looking for an editor. Our budget is 800K.
But they don't post the budget on
They don't post the budget, which is a very toxic thing, So, because why do you want me to come and now, because the budget is 800,000, so I say, I want 100K, and you're like, oh yes, thank God, so we give you the 100K. We now tell management, hey, we've saved 700,000. 3-4 months down the line, this person realizes they're being underpaid and overworked. They leave. We go back to the same cycle. So it becomes, it is very toxic. So, and because you find that most employers don't want to disclose that, if I'm the one doing the interviews during the initial interview, after introductions, I'll tell you, so you're interviewing for the editor role, our budget is 50,000. Are you okay with that? Maybe where you're coming from, you're getting 100K, so that we don't waste each other's time. You'll tell me, can you guys move it up? So I'll tell you, maybe we have room to add 10K. So if it doesn't work, I save you your time, you save me my time, we move on at the end of the day. Yeah, and then I also tell employers to just allow us to put it in the job advertisement, so that if I'm earning 20,000 and maybe I'm looking for 50,000, this job that has been posted offering 50,000, I'll apply. Instead of now I'm earning 100K, I see this job that the advert has been pimped so well, I apply only for me to go and be told, now our budget is 30,000 and I'm asking for 100 or maybe 150. Yeah, so there are 2 ways you can, and then also you could always ask for the budget during the interview. Yeah. So the HR tells you, so Nicole, what's your salary expectation? So you tell them, so I'd like to understand that every job that has been advertised in any company has a budget. So do you mind disclosing the budget? Mostly they'll tell you, no, just take it as an open book. Oh, it's an open check. A lot of corporate hulabaloo. Yeah, so now that is where now you tell them what you want. Yeah, so you tell them, so okay, so personally, given my skills and this, this is how much I'm asking for. Also, never ask for a specific figure. So if you're looking for 60,000, like your heart is set on 60,000, ask for 70 to 80. So that they tell you, 70 is a bit too high, we'll give you 65. Yeah, so if your number is 60, always do 10,000 above. Yeah, and always give a range.
Don't give a specific number.
Because you find that if you give a specific number, maybe we can have a budget of 400,000, but management says we can only increase up to 600K. So now our budget is between 400 to 600K. So you say, so I'm looking for 400,000. They'll give you that 400,000, but there's a potential to give you 600,000. Yeah. So always ask for, so always give a range. Yeah.
I have a question. Do you discuss about salary expectations? Because the company that I understand, they add salaries for every year, every financial year. Do you discuss that during the interviews or after you've been hired?
When it comes to salary increments?
Yeah.
Some people ask during the interviews. So they'll ask, so how does your salary and reward benefit policy works? So you can disclose depending on if the employee or if the candidate has asked. But when it comes to that, it's a conversation you have once somebody has accepted the offer. So during contract signing, there's a whole onboarding process, takes about a week, 3 to 5 days, depending on the company. Yeah, so now that's where now we go through our policies. Now we let you know after probation, maybe if we've decided we're giving you 80K, we'll tell you we'll give you 80K. After probation, once we confirm you, your salary will be bumped to maybe 100K. And then after that, you will get maybe a 10% increase every year or maybe biannually. Yeah, it all varies depending on the company you're working for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were starting, you said you went into HR because of the toxic culture.
Yeah.
Do you think you being in HR has improved that?
Yeah,
or
I feel like
personally, do you think like you've impacted the society?
It has. Do you feel like running away talking to a HR right now?
No.
Exactly. So I feel
But
like
it's still kind of
has-
scary because
Yeah,
there's a whole toxic mentality about HRs.
Yeah, that's true. So I feel like I've brought an impact, especially when it comes to recruitment. I try to make the candidates feel as comfortable as possible. You know, so look at me as a human being. I also want to look at you as a human being. Yeah, so if you feel comfortable speaking Kiswahili, that's fine. You know, maybe if you feel comfortable, you know, you want a glass of water, or maybe you just don't want to sit in that particular seat, you want to sit somewhere else, you want to swing with your chair. You know, whatever makes you comfortable. Yeah, I try as much as possible to, you know, crack jokes. Let's laugh, let's have a conversation. Not just, oh, so tell me about your strengths, tell me about your weaknesses, tell me about yourself, you know. You find that when it comes to recruitment, putting an interview to be more of a conversation, the candidate will volunteer so much information without them realizing. And that's how you find yourself now narrowing down to a person who's not just crammed their CV, to now you get to know this candidate as an individual. Yeah, so I feel like the small to impacts are there. Yeah, because there's nobody who I've ever recommended to be hired who has quit.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, that's really nice. Ni kama
Yeah, it
nitakuja
is.
kwako nikitafuta kazi.
Okay.
So thank you very much for coming in today.
Yeah, thank you
Please
for having
follow
me.
him on his socials. You said the socials were...
Jeshuran, the Gen Z HR.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also you can follow the company if you're looking for work. Also, don't forget we're in Naiwave Studios. If you're looking for a space to do your podcast, please DM their socials. And you can, if you want to do the podcast at the comfort of your own home, you can also do that. They have affordable rates. I'm hoping that, I know they're pocket friendly. So thank you very much for watching us. We are on road to 1,000 subscribers and see you all next time. Bye.